And good morning. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. It's 11:03 on April 7th of 2023. It's a Friday morning and a little cold here after a warm week in which we were out doing some gardening, and we got so hot we had to break off yesterday. But today we had a front come through. It rained a lot of thunder last night, and right now it's just kind of calm and chilly. I think it's about 50 degrees or so outside, but it's a total different from yesterday. Well, good morning, Corky Goss. I see you punched in right at 11 a.m. according to the chat room log there, and I do want to say hello to everyone at Rumble and everyone at Facebook, and we will be watching the chat at on my StreamYard main channel, which is where I can see the YouTube as well as the Facebook chat. And good morning to Robert Kovacs. Nice to have you here. And I'm using the banana flag image as a reference to the indictment of President Trump and what a Mickey Mouse government it looks like we have that would actually do that. And it also is an indication that, powers outside of our nation and outside of our government, i.e., George Soros, are having an incredible impact upon the policies and, really who we are. Who are we as a nation that would wait, until almost before the next election to try to slime the most likely Republican candidate with a bunch of old stuff, you know, stormy weather. Well, I hope that it backfires. I want it to backfire. I think it's a disgusting abuse of prosecutorial authority, and I think it will. I think it's just another indication of desperation on people who are trying to keep the lid over a lot of nasty, nasty pots. And David Underdown's checking in. Hey, David, I'll ask you this question online. I have 11 o'clock on Tuesday. Um, I was wondering if you would be willing to join me to get into that Alpha Bank story. Just for those that are listening, David and I have been working on a project to try to uncover exactly how did Vladimir Putin get financed? How did what's the source of his financial power that allows him to maintain power? And, uh, part of it is my interest in the extensive reach of the Rothschild banking system. And is Alpha Bank, or is it not, a Rothschild effort? And if it is a Rothschild effort, then does that make Putin an agent of that same banking system that we talk about so much as the core of the deep state? Well, that would be next Tuesday at 11. If you can do that, David, you can. If not, then we'll just pick another time. But I just noticed on the calendar I had an opening, and I like to do things at 11 a.m. if I can because my brain's a little bit more awake. Hello, Marie Burns from Scotland. 4:05 p.m. Sunny with clear blue sky. Sounds nice. We'd love to get to Scotland. My wife's ancestry, the Keith family of Scotland. I looked and found that they are from the lowlands area around Aberdeen, and there's still an old castle there. They have something to do with the Marshall family in that I think there was a Keith that was the Marshal of Scotland, and that connection is very interesting to me. I want to spend more time on Marsh's ancestry. So the Keiths uh, had a whole lot of keys in one area at one point, and apparently the postmaster decided to give one of them the spelling of Keeth instead of Keith, and that's the one um, that Marsh's father was a Keeth. Anyway, Scotland on a sunny day. Sounds good. I was in Edinburgh once in 1980, and it was rainy the whole time, but uh, drank something called bitters, and doesn't take much. I think I slept well that night. Actually, somebody had to help me find my bed and breakfast. I couldn't remember where I was staying. And this nice fella in a VW van talked to me and figured out where I must have been, and he got me home in time for me to get a little sleep. That was a long time ago, 1980, so that's 43 years ago. But I'm still the same person. I think I've learned a thing or two along the way. Corky says, your flag illustration is a design strategy called synergy. Two unlike things gain more meaning-energy than one alone. Old graphics strategy. Cheers, and cheers to you, Corky. Yeah, well, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. It's just, it seized upon um, my mind when I saw that image, and I thought, yeah, that's a good way to tell it. To say, look what you're doing. You're taking, the most, noble, glorified, wonderful nation, that we've been taught is the greatest hope of mankind, and doing something as crazy and Mickey Mouse as this in this indictment. So, I mean, for goodness sakes, of all the things that Trump's done in his life, you had to go after him for a porn star? Man, that's like saying you had to get Capone on a tax charge because all of his other crimes, he hid them so well. Actually, I don't think he hid them at all. I think it was just all complicit, and the powers that be didn't want to expose their connections to Capone, and that's why it had to be a tax charge, because otherwise certain names would have come out. And as I understand, that conviction of Al Capone was part of the takeover of the mafia by the Meyer Lansky group. So, using the government to get rid of a powerful rival. From Cicero, Illinois, the same place that Cardinal Marcinkus came from, who became the head of the IOR, the Vatican Bank, when it's going through all of its trials and tribulations associated with Propaganda Due Licio Gelli and the um, Club of Rome, all of which instigated by our friend Henry Kissinger. Well, the other thing I've been working on this week, the other thing I've been working on this week is trying to suss out what is the real Vladimir Putin. And, as much, and I love Harley Schlanger and the LaRouche folks, the Schiller Institute, they are working very hard to legitimize Vladimir Putin and President Xi of China as independent actors and not under the thumb of the deep state world financial cabal. And so I would love to think that, yeah, we have an honest broker in Russia and an honest broker in China, and now all we need is an honest broker in the White House, and we can make a deal and everything's done, right? They can do their countries, we do our countries. We have negotiations and diplomatic services that will help us work out whatever differences there are. And we're just not going to play the war game anymore. Why should we? It costs more to go to war than anything you win in going to war. It always does. You know, as a nation, look at what we lost in World War II. Look what we lost. And we won. You know, the losers lost, 100 times as much as we lost. But yet we lost, you know, the whole thing was unnecessary. It's an adjustment of the economic situation of the world, in favor of the central existing financial powers and their allies, the nobility, the oligarchical families of Italy and Britain and France and Poland and Western Europe generally, the power of the oligarchical families and the noble families. Although they said they're not going to be observing nobility anymore, there still is that class divide. And it's so real. And Americans don't see it. We don't understand that Europe is still somewhat in the Middle Ages, and especially Britain, which, presents itself as our friendly mother country. And we have all these great traditions together. And we love the Queen and everybody. It's all this romantic fantasy of nobility. Of course, they have a parliament now and, all the great prime ministers, and they take care of, protecting democracy, while the nobility provides, this kind of almost a spiritual, let's just say a metaphysical leadership that people somehow have glommed onto as part of what life needs. We need some type of a figurehead. Well, Britain offers its figurehead to us, and a lot of us follow along. We think, yeah, that's our royal family too. But, it's all show. It's all a drama of sorts to keep our minds occupied while the beat goes on behind the scenes. So, what I've been working on is trying to read some other people's writings on this subject. And one of them I pointed out to you in my last minefield, and it was called The Rockefeller Plan for the BRICS New World Order. And that one was published by redefininggod.com. And I'll just remind you, because I've got it in front of me here on the other page. I'll read some from it. The BRICS' role in erecting the New World Order. This is a quote from the book, The Prospect, what is it called? The Rockefeller Project, that was printed in 1956, that spells out the results of a summit led by Henry Kissinger. Oh, it's called Prospect for America, the Rockefeller Panel Reports. And it was the product of a 1956 Rockefeller Brothers Fund effort known as the Special Studies Project. That's what we're talking about, the project. And it lays out the blueprint for the multilateral, multipolar New World Order that is currently materializing around us. That's the text. And so the 19th century political system, according to the Rockefeller text, was dominated by 13 empires. After the wars, there's only the Soviet threat. It is us against them. It is the good guys against the bad guys. And what the Rockefeller project comes up with is the way to defeat the Soviets is to create different groupings of countries around the world that each would support within that group, support each other, and thereby not be able to be taken over by, the evil empire of the Soviet Union. So just to read a little bit of it, this is from 1956, okay? Rockefeller Brothers publication. The hoped-for result is peace in a world divided into smaller units, but organized and acting in common effort to permit and assist progress in economic, political, cultural, and spiritual life. Such a community must facilitate the freest and fullest access by everyone to the thinking of everyone. It must allow for the widest diversity of ideas, social structure, and forms of expression compatible with the functioning of the community. It would presumably consist of regional institutions under an international body of growing authority. An international body of growing authority. In other words, the United Nations doesn't have the authority yet, but once we get these groupings together, then they're going to find the United Nations has growing authority. Combined so as to be able to deal with those problems that increasingly the separate nations will not be able to solve alone. And of course, a problem like what? Like a virus. Take note of how the passage says, quote, combined so as to be able to deal with those problems that increasingly the separate nations will not be able to solve alone. Here they are telling us, this is the author of the blog saying this, here they are telling us that they'll be purposefully creating increasingly difficult problems to compel the nations to accept the New World Order. In addition to participating directly in the development of two regional groups, the United States has participated fully and from the start in the United Nations, the international organization that today holds out the reasonable hope of being able to take over more and more functions and to assume increasingly large responsibilities. The UN stands, finally, as a symbol of the world order that will one day be built. Okay? And then the article goes in to show the groupings, basically geographically groupings like Asia, Europe, North America, etc. And from there, I raised the question: well, aren't the BRICS going to be that grouping that's going to provide an a balance against the U.S., the Wall Street, City of London, Western financial system? And yes, okay, it will be, but it's all, and Putin is with the United Nations. China is big time with the United Nations. It's all under the umbrella of the United Nations. So as you accept the BRICS as, an alternative, and actually, as if once people see that the BRICS is where the money is going, then I suspect there'll be a run out of the dollar into BRICS currencies. And where are American investors going to go but into BRICS currencies as well? Because they're not patriotic in terms of where they invest. Maybe they were, maybe we used to be, maybe those of us that went through the 2007 or earlier the various huge financial crises that we've had, and we say to ourselves, you know, I might be able to make money by pulling my money out of American banks right now and invest somewhere else or just get out of the system. But I leave the money in there, you know, my pension, for instance, I leave what I have there in the American system using US dollars because partly because I think the whole system would crash if all of us decided to run out of it. But if the BRICS come up with a financial system that's going to be more sound than what the US dollar is looking like with all of these crazy, crazy political interventions into the economy by printing money and, you know, just giving it away, sending it overseas. You know, this is the culmination of what appears to be the original plan, which was to take the US economy down to the level of the Soviet economy in 1952. And that was the plan in the 1950s that was announced by, I think, Leo Strauss. And the whole secret plan is to take, you know, the wealthiest, best, you know, freest country in the world and reduce it to the level of the Soviet Union in 1952. And if you think that's not what's going on, that's what Synarchy is doing. That's what Lazar is doing. That's what all of the mergers and acquisitions and the business as usual crowd from Charles Higgins' book, Standard Oil, all of them are engaged in a process that is diminishing the standard of living of Americans, allowing the standard of living of Chinese and Russian people, or at least up until recently Russian people, to rise and to thereby create a atmosphere in the world in which America no longer can call the tune. And by impoverishing us, you know, we become vulnerable to just total dismemberment, break us into regions like you've seen probably if you look into this stuff, that there's FEMA regions that are all planned out, in which if the government decides that we have a certain emergency status, then FEMA starts becoming the government and it governs by regions. And then we have people like the former mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, writing a book about how cities are now going to be the operative political entities. That, you know, the countryside is all going to be depopulated. Everybody's going to live in the cities, and the cities themselves are going to be run by very powerful mayors, and these mayors are going to call the shots. And they're also going to be in charge of making deals with the other cities. And if that is not also, you know, breaking down everything into regional or local units so that they can all be controlled from the top as the United Nations takes on more and more, quote, responsibility. So I am not on board with the idea that Vladimir Putin or President Xi are independent, sovereign people that are running their countries and fighting against the encroachments of NATO for the good of their citizens. They're tied in to the World Health Organization. They're tied into the World Economic Forum, and they're tied into the United Nations deeply. I love to read Riley Wagaman's Substacks, in which he keeps us informed as to the status of the um, jabs in Russia, the policy of the government, and the prospect of continuing a regime of jabs forever and ever in Russia. Why would you do that unless you are in on the whole big deal? So, not to say that I don't want the political situation in the world to be more evenly distributed. And it's happening, and it definitely is. But I do not like the idea of our our functioning, our institutions functioning against us, the citizens. You know, look who fought the World War II. You know, it was not the executives of General Motors or DuPont or Standard Oil that were out there with the rifles and the tanks. You know, these are the common people of America that are supposed to be the vanguard of liberty and freedom in the world. And these are the people that are being put down through Machiavellian deceptions over and over and over again. Just as certainly as you know that in the Peanuts comics, that every fall that Charlie Brown is going to come running at that football, intending to kick it, and Lucy, the little Luciferian, is going to pull it away from him at the last minute. He's going to go flying into the air and land on his back. And he's going to say, what? Rats. And that's what Charles M. Schultz has given us is a kind of an iconic American that's going to get screwed every time. And it's like predictive programming. If you read the Charlie Brown comics, you know, Charlie Brown's going to lose. He's a good guy. He just doesn't understand that there are Luciferian forces out there that are going to pull the football away from him every time he thinks he's ready to kick that perfect field goal. Pardon me a moment. All right, so enough out of me for an introductory rant on my part. Let me go back and scroll through the chat here on my feed here on StreamYard where I can see YouTube chat, but not Rumble chat, unfortunately. And I trust that folks on Rumble that are aware that we are doing the chat mainly over here on YouTube. So as much as I'd like to do it on Rumble, it's just not practical at this point to try to get everybody over there because it's just not that easy a program to run compared to YouTube, which is, you know, just seamless, easy. Okay, let's roll through here. Professor Hamamoto, good morning or good. It's early morning for you, isn't it? Riddle me this. What did Stormy say after completing the transaction with Orange Man? Quote, it was a business to pleasure with you, sir. All right. But boom. Deconstructing poutine. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I'm going to try to get David to help me with tracing the finances of Vladimir Putin as he took power in Russia in the 90s. Remember the Goodwill Games? Who was beside? I don't know. I kind of remember the name, but that was China, right? Wasn't it like U.S. and China or something? Leslie, how are you? Coronado swastika. Tell me more. Marie Burns, even CNN won't put their weight behind these charges. That's, well, that does say a lot, doesn't it? Not that I really care what CNN does or says. You know what? I do want to make a comment, though, on um, Keith Waters on Fox, which I just noticed because it was repeated on Twitter. I don't watch Fox. But Keith Waters did a really good segment on these interventions that are being done by Jose Vega and his colleagues at the New York Schiller Institute. And Daniel Burke is one of them. And, you could see him getting grabbed by the elbow and pulled away from the press conferences with, I don't know if it was, this one was Pelosi or who, but you'll see these getting a lot more ink now, especially with Fox um, reporting on it on their big news program. Interestingly, these protesters were not identified as LaRouches, which they are. They were identified as leftists. They were identified as leftists, anti-war leftists on Fox. And I think they made a serious choice not to identify them as LaRouche people because LaRouche has, the name, at least in the United States, carries an awful lot of baggage, and that baggage affixed to LaRouche by the likes of Robert Swan Mueller III and William Barr, ex Attorney General. That kind of over the top sliming of Lyndon LaRouche is still there. It's effective. And I tell you my other idea. I mean, just one of my crazy ideas, but I think Nuke LaLoosh in um, the movie with Kevin Costner and Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon about the baseball team in North Carolina. I can't remember the name of the movie, but the character that Tim Robbins plays is called Nuke LaLoosh. And this was at a time when LaRouche was making a lot of problems about SDI and things like that. They just some people really wanted to get rid of him. And I think that's why they choose that name. What a crazy name otherwise to pick for a character. That Anyway, great movie. Can't remember the name of it. Hi, Baker. The great ruble scam of the 90s. I don't remember that. I might not have been totally awake at that time. So maybe you could remind me, what was that about? Road Warrior 11. The U.S. began the globalization track under Reagan's first term. The DoD began Foreign Comparative Test Program in 1980. I don't know what that test is. Um, yeah, the globalization. Where does it start? Yeah, it's a good call under Reagan. I think probably you could even go back before Reagan uh, to the uh, Ford and then Brzezinski on behind Carter. But yes, Reagan brings in the neocons, and it's the neocons that really start driving American policy against the best interests of the American people. My opinion. For Free Reign says they ran the, you know what, the CV I won't say anymore, on their own citizens. They are all under HSBC control. Well, that's interesting, James Comey, HSBC, and these connections to these European and Asian, but actually, you know, this is old opium money. This is the old money from the China traders and other kinds of illicit trading that we don't need to specify. David's underdown. Snoopy is now the MetLife mascot. Yeah. Hello, Kevin O'Brien. Remember Putin and Bush in their wizard outfits? Yes, I do. Wasn't that in Korea? Yeah. That's a very good reminder. People that will have seen that, you can't forget it when you've seen it. Um, yeah, they're saying we're, you know, cooking things up behind the scenes. Of course, Winston Churchill had a wizard outfit too, didn't he? Oh, this is important. David Underdown comes in with the answer to the Goodwill Games. It is the same founder as the Nuclear Threat Initiative. Wow. So we're looking at Richard Lugar and um, what's his name from Georgia? Sam Nunn. And yeah, these people are playing Machiavellian games with our lives. Haldeman Beetle Coronado Naval Base, says Leslie McKenzie. Well, I guess that's Coronado, but I still haven't got the rest of it. Talking about Haldeman Nixon's man. But anyway, if we have time, I'd like you to tell me a little more about that because I didn't get the reference. For free reign, that's interesting. Let's see. I met two COINTEL LaRouche infiltrators. The one lady was off her rocker. These types are deployed so that grassroots groups can be dirtied. She had a quote, a LaRouche card, quote, LOL. Okay, so LaRouche gets infiltrated by COINTEL. Well, I'm not surprised at all. But I think those Jose Vega and the other couple of people, especially, I do believe Daniel Burke. Of course, these are sincere LaRouche believers. I won't be dissuaded from that. On the other hand, sure, there's probably infiltrators. Bull Durham Tobacco. Julian Carr was the backer of Charlie Soong and his Bible biz. What David's reminding us of here is that Charlie Soong was the Soong family from China, the ones that were connected to Chiang Kai-shek and the opium business in China. As you know, by the 20th century, the opium business was completely taken had taken over China, and the government was running the opium business, and it was uh, through that the Soong family became very, very, very wealthy, and so they sent Charlie Soong to North Carolina to get an education, and he became a missionary. Bull Durham Tobacco, the owner, Julian Carr, who's a huge, wealthy uh, guy that I think he, I think he wasn't the original. I think he was probably an heir. But at any rate, the idea of then Bibles going back to China with Charlie Sung and the Bull Durham tobacco must be connected with the Bull Durham, the Durham Bulls minor league baseball team. Well, that's the best I can put it together. Here's more from David. Julian Carr and J.B. Duke, big backers of Duke and UNC for Tobacco Road Hoops fans. Okay. Well, I live with a Tobacco Road Hoops fan. She's up in arms because they weren't in the Final Four, or they weren't even in the NCAA this year. And if you're a North Carolina basketball fan, well, you are one for life. And again from for free reign. Be realistic. HSBC made bioweapons with the CCP to attack the U.S. No country would make weapons with the enemy, which has been attacking them. It is textbook HSBC warfare. Okay. So HSBC makes the bioweapons with the CCP. Okay. Well, it may be true. I don't know if it's true or not. I can't say that it is true. It's certainly a lot of people feel that way. We can ask Steve Bannon what he thinks about it. And David says it's Ted Turner. Okay. Road Warrior 11 says the movie Network from 1976 more prescient than ever today. Yeah, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You know, how many of us were like, yeah, I'm mad as well. I'm not going to take it anymore either. 1976. Yeah. But we've taken it, haven't we? We've just stood and took it. Hanoi Jane, what was that about? Why did they send Jane Fonda over to Hanoi to become a lightning rod for criticism of the left? Um, I guess that was why, because they needed somebody to say, "Look at her, she's Hanoi Jane, and all these people are traitors." Okay, Steele is asking about Mark Kulak's show yesterday, Housatonic Live, uh, and the Housatonic Live show from yesterday. If he took it down, he will have it up on Odyssey and BitChute, and you can go to HousatonicITS.com and find out all of his various connections. But don't worry, you can find that show, and but look on Odyssey. I think that's his primary backup at this time. So yeah, I want to make sure everybody keeps up with Mark. His work is priceless. Hello, Laura Willingham. Good to have you here this morning, or whatever time it is where you are. Well, I attended Clemson, and oh, And my husband is an NC State grad, so we tend to be not so thrilled about UNC, but we have plenty of loved ones who are grads. We forgive them. Okay. I went down to Clemson for the first time in when we had the eclipse. Was it 2018, I think? And the most recent solar eclipse, and it was one of my bucket list things, and I just did it. I went down there and ended up on the campus of Clemson. Wow, what a right wing, you know, Jesus saves place. It's all over the place. I ended up out of town at a little state park watching the eclipse and just had a wonderful view of it. I have got some great photos and really enjoyed it. But Clemson like freaked me out. Wow, I can't stay here very long. Brightmore is here. Hi, Brightmore. Israel getting ready to retaliate after Lebanon is blamed for the missile strikes in Genie Energy country. Okay, let's get back and talk about Genie Energy some more. It's been a couple of years since we were really focused on that, and that's something I want to do. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to wrap it up at this point and wish you all a very, very great weekend. I will be filling out the schedule for next week over the weekend, and we'll post that up on screamingospreys.com. If you want to know what's happening and what's coming up, go to screamingospreys.com and check out the calendar over there. Thank you all so much. I will talk to you on Monday. Bye now.